sometime.
Gotta pray sometime.
Trouble come my way.
Trouble come my way.
Gotta pray sometime.
Gotta pray sometime.
Keep on praying, 'cause
Jesus, He will fix it.
I'm telling you, Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
you know that Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
well, in a while,
In a while,
trouble come my way.
the trouble come my way.
You gotta fight sometime.
Gotta fight sometime.
Trouble come my way.
Trouble come my way.
You gotta fight sometime.
Gotta fight sometime.
Keep on fighting, 'cause Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
I'm telling you, Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
you know that my Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
after a while,
After a while,
trouble come my way.
trouble come my way.
Gotta cry sometime.
Gotta cry sometime.
Trouble come my way.
Trouble come my way.
Gotta cry sometime.
Gotta cry sometime.
Won't you cry because Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
I know that my Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
I know that Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
oh, after a while,
After a while,
trouble come my way.
trouble come my way.
I gotta pray sometime.
Gotta pray sometime.
Trouble come my way.
Trouble come my way.
Gotta pray sometime.
Gotta pray sometime.
The people praying for Jesus.
Jesus, He will fix it.
I know that Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
telling you Jesus,
Jesus, He will fix it.
oh, after a while,
After a
I
while,
said after a while,
after a while,
oh, after a while,
after a while.
All right. I like that. Jesus will fix it. Man, I need to hear that song about 3 times a week. Good to be with you guys tonight. So I got a few calendar items, and then we're going to do a group activity. Like I said, you never know what's going to happen at midnight. It's going to be fun. And now here, yes! Kyle and Kara have graciously put together our April-May calendar. So thank you guys. And they are right here. I'll leave them up here. You can just pick one up after midweek. Just a few upcoming events. Coming up in April, we're going to be transitioning back to our house churches. So it's been good meeting together every other week for congregational midweeks. In April, it's going to look more like this. The first Wednesday of the month will be a congregational midweek, and then the rest of the month will be in our house churches.
All right.
And so they could be 3, they could be 4 times a month, 5 or 6 if you're really ambitious. You guys decide how often you guys want to meet with your group. And then April 9th, of course, is Easter. Excited about that. And we really want to make this a great event to invite your friends to. And so we will have extra donuts and bagels and coffee downstairs. And tell them to come early. The band is preparing some songs as we speak. And it's going to be a great time to be together. It's always good to worship at Easter. It's a special time. And so hoping that a lot of our friends can come out and celebrate with us. All right. So I have an activity for us tonight, and it's called 10 Things in Common. So what we're going to do is we're going to break up into groups of 3 or 4, and what I want you to do is talk about 10 things that you as a group have in common. So let me give an example. You could say, well, I live in Northwest Indiana. But since I used that example, you can't use that specific example for your group. Sorry. That's too easy. So pick someone in your group to be your spokesperson, and then we are going to do this as a group. So I'm going to number us off, and then we'll gather up in groups of 3 or 4. So let me see, how many people we got here? 5. Okay. me count up to 5. Hey, John and Lydia, welcome, welcome, guys. They're worshiping from a distance because we have a very little baby here. But good to see you. Good to see you guys here. Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You don't need to touch the sea. That's right. So let me number us off here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one of you guys can be 5 if you want to participate. All right. So find your groups, 1 through 5, and what I want you to do for the next few minutes is discover 10 things that you have in common.
You got I'm at church. I know, come over here.
I am enjoying a few minutes of you guys having a group activity.
Sandy will be up.
Okay. Yeah, so Therese will be over here. Therese up here.
You can give us a things if you want. We're just finding out 10 things that each group has in common. So, we're looking at group you want. It's up to All right, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it.
We're trying to make them good, okay?
If you don't get the 10, that's okay.
We all are. You better. Always read an article about how younger generations are learning how to drive rejected.
It is in my
One minute. 1 minute.
We have like 30 seconds.
All right, time's up. Come on back. Come on back. If you didn't get to 10, that's okay.
We got 10. Oh my goodness. That's a crazy list.
Hey, darling.
Make up another one.
All right, I need a representative from each group, and we'll start with group 1. Group 1, share the things you learned. Is that your group, Kyle?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so we came up with 8. 10 things we have in common, or 8 things we have in common. None of us were born in Indiana. All right, I'll start over. 8 things we have in common. No one was born in Indiana. We all have siblings. We all have cars. We all have ridden on a motorcycle.
Okay.
We all love breakfast. Yes. We all have some gray hair. We are all over 40, and we all love Jesus.
All right. I like it. Group number 2.
Group number 2, comprised of Mary, Tom, Zach, Taryn, and Celeste. All wear glasses, all have jobs, no PhDs yet. We're all wearing t-shirts tonight. We're born in the USA. We're right-handed. We all own cars. We have all been out of the country, and our moms are still living. We are baptized disciples of Jesus.
All right. Love it. You've all been out of the country. That's a good unique one. All right, 3.
All right, 3s, raise your hands so everybody knows who the 3s are.
All right.
Here are the 3s. So, we all can swim, we all been to Michigan, we all like mac and cheese, we all like chocolate. We all played sports in high school, we're all 50 or over. We all like jazz, we're all married, we all have dogs, and we all have children.
All right. Come on. All have dogs. Okay. Dog lovers in that group. I like it. All right, group number 4, I think, right?
Come on, number 4. Woo-hoo! Okay, so because we have some age differences, it's a little difficult, but we all love God, we all own Bibles, we are all committed to church, we all like warm weather, we've all grown up with dogs, we love Italian food, we prefer romaine over iceberg. We like ice cream, brownies, and beaches.
get on the topic of lettuce, but I love it. That's awesome. All right, group number 5.
Okay. All right, 5 for him. So everybody knows. That was a big age group difference too. We all like music. We all been on a plane. All of us have driver's license. We all have parents. We all went to college. We all have a car. We all have smartphones. No tattoos. We all love the smell of coffee. And we were all adults.
Very good. Y'all love this. I love the emphasis on the smell of coffee. You don't necessarily like coffee, but I like it if somebody's grinding it up and making it. So, as you guys were doing this experience together, just some observations. Like, what's one thing you learned just as you were kind of learning a few things about each other?
Not everyone likes kids or babies.
All right. You know, it's just general observations, Todd.
Some things I thought would be a for sure obvious, that maybe it's a like. Oh, everyone's gonna like this, and some people are like, I don't even know what that is.
Okay, so we can make assumptions on what everybody likes, and they may not even know what it is. Okay, good. What else? Other observations?
I thought it was fun that we all got along in asking one another these questions, you know, do we do this, do we do that, or have we done this, or do we have? I thought we had a great time.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun getting to know other people,
Yeah, it is.
absolutely. Dane?
The obvious isn't so obvious. It's really strange how dissimilar we really are.
Ah, the obvious is not so obvious. Well put.
Seems like most people are transplanted to Indiana.
That's a good point. So yeah, not many were born here, or maybe they were born in Indiana, but not necessarily in Northwest Indiana.
It's not admitted.
Lawrence?
I'm just surprised about find out now. But everybody knows the library. I love it.
You live, what is it?
Rain.
Oh, rain. Oh, okay. I thought you said green. People have things against the color green? You said rain, okay. Yeah, so it's fun, it's interesting. We learn our similarities, we learn what we're not alike. And, you know, I think that's just representative of the body of Christ. You know, there's some ways where we may have some things in common, but there's some things that we don't have in common. And yet we're all a family, we're all together, we're all learning to love one another. So tonight, let me get my notes up here. All right. Tonight we're going to take a little look at John 21. You guys can be turning there. And I wanted to take a look at the friendships between the disciples. And if you look at the disciples, what you might be surprised is if they played this game, 10 Things They Have in Common, at the beginning, when they first became friends, when Jesus called them and they're hanging out together, the things that they have in common might not be so obvious and maybe not so flattering. Let me give a few examples. 10 things that the disciples had in common, I'm not going to give 10, but one of them, they were self-centered. Peter comes to mind. Jesus had just said, I'm going to suffer, I'm going to die, it's going to be bad. And what's Peter say? Never, Lord, this will never happen to you. And the truth is, he didn't want to suffer. He didn't want to go through hardship. He wanted Jesus to lead him the way that he wanted to be led. The disciples were self-centered. The disciples were often grumpy. You know, at the feeding of the 5,000 beforehand, you know, there's a lot of impatient and grumpy talk. Where can we find enough food for all these people? Lord, send them away. Just send them away. Take them home. There's another occasion. Children are coming to Jesus. Little kids are coming to Jesus. And the disciples are rebuking the crowd. Leave him alone. He's too busy for the likes of you. The disciples were often grumpy. I think one of the most prominent things that they had in common is they didn't get along. This is a group of guys that honestly didn't have a lot in common. Some of them had similar professions, but they came from different walks of life, different personalities. a common argument among them is who's the greatest? Who's going to sit at your right and who's going to sit at your left? These guys had some interesting things in common. But 3 years later, they became best of friends. And it wasn't because of what they had in common, it's because of who they had in common. We all know who that who is. Let's read John 21, verse 1. Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples. Man, do I sound like that? Awesome.
That was an echo.
Oh. Afterward, Jesus again appeared to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told them. And they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and they got to the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? No, they answered. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you'll find some. When they did this, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. And as soon as Simon Peter heard him say it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in a boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from shore, about 100 yards. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it and some bread. So if you finish the story, Jesus says, why don't you guys bring the fish you just caught, come on over, let's have some breakfast together. I find it interesting if you read on in there, they said they caught 153 fish. I have no idea why 153. The only thing I could come up with is that was just to show that it was a lot of fish. This is not 20 or 30. This is like a miracle that stood out to them, and they had to count them because it was beyond belief to them how many fish they had caught. So Jesus does a miracle very similar to something that had happened about 3 years earlier when he was with Peter, James, and John. And Peter was wrestling with, did he even want to follow Jesus? Jesus appears and he calls out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? Haven't you caught any fish? Now, when Jesus was calling out to them, they didn't know who he was. Jesus knew who they were, and if you get into the real translation he used there, it's actually the word children. And it's kind of like just a fun way of saying like, hey boys, how's it going? Hey guys, you catch any fish? It's a term of endearment. They don't realize that it's Jesus. So they sit down, they have a meal together, and of course, you know the story. This is where Peter and Jesus have a little sit-down talk. Peter's not doing so well in his faith at the moment. Jesus asks him 3 times, do you love me? Do you love me? And there's this back and forth, and Jesus is trying to get to Peter's heart. He asks him this 3 times. The final time he asked him, do you love me? And this is where Peter got hurt, because he's like already said 3 times, I love you, Lord. Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And Jesus says, feed my sheep. What's interesting in this interaction is after every time Jesus asks Peter if he loves him, Peter affirms it. Jesus says something about sheep. Tend to my sheep. Take care of my lambs. Feed my sheep. Kind of a surprising response to, do you love me? Peter, if somebody asked me, let's say Jinky asked me, Braxton, do you love me? I'm like, babe, I love you. I would hope to hear back, I love you too. That's a response that you would want to hear back. Jesus is trying to get to Peter's heart. What's interesting is, where Jesus is going with is, if you are really my friend, if you really love me, then it's going to be shown in the relationships you have with my church. Feed my lambs, take care of my lambs, feed my sheep. Not just a call to an evangelist, not just a call to a church leader like Peter would become, but really a call for all of us to take care of one another. In a sense, feed Jesus' sheep. So I have 3 points tonight talking about friendships. We're going to be digging into our family groups and our house churches in the coming weeks. And I think our friendships are super important. And we all have a different level of experience and background with each other. Some of us have known each other for over 10 years. Some of us were brand new here and we really don't know anybody. We're all in different places. What I want to put before you is some ways that we can grow in our friendships as we gather in our house churches. So 3 points today. Number 1, take the time. We have to make sure we cut out time in our schedule to build genuine friendships. Number 2, risk the relationship. Once you start building a friendship, if you want to go deeper, there's a risk involved. You're going to have to open up about who you really are and how you're really doing. And the third point, and I think in some ways something that we should be able to do all the time, is find the fun. If we're not having fun in our relationships in the body of Christ, there is something wrong. And it's not with Jesus. It's not with his church. There's something we got to change because Jesus created fun. That's an important part of our walk with God. All right, point number 1 is take the time. John 21, verse 3. Peter tells them, I'm going out to fish. They said, we'll go with you. So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. So this is a pivotal moment in Peter's life. We know the story. Just a few weeks earlier, Jesus and Peter had a conversation. Peter turns to Jesus and says, I'll never leave you. I'm willing to die with you. And the very next day denies Jesus 3 times. Peter's struggling in his faith. He's wandering. He's disillusioned. He's even despairing. And then Jesus has appeared to Peter, and then he appears to all the disciples. Then he appears to them a second time, and this occasion is actually the 3rd time that Jesus has appeared to all of them as a group. And I think Peter was trying to do what all of us are tempted to do when we're struggling in our walk with God. Pull away. I'm sure Peter was thinking words like this: I just need a break. I just need a time out. I need to go back. I'm just going to do what I know how to do, and that's how to fish. We tend to go back and do the old things. We go back to our old habits and our old tendencies when we're struggling in our faith. Have you ever felt like this in your life? Have you ever thought, you know what, I just need a break. I need a break from the church. I need a break from people in the church. I need a break from God. I just need some time. I just need some time apart. I need to figure this out. I just need to be alone. And if you've ever felt that, that's normal. You're going to feel those things because when you're wrestling, the natural thing to do is to pull away from everybody and everyone. And it sounds good. You could even rationalize it. Yeah, maybe he does need a break. Maybe a week or two, without having a quiet time and without being with the body of Christ. Yeah, maybe that's what that person needs. But I want us to take a look at what Thomas, Nathaniel, James and John, and 2 other disciples did. When Peter went off to go fishing, I guarantee you he was not inviting these guys. I guarantee it. He said, I'm going fishing. He didn't say, come fishing with me. He's just letting them know where he's going, and he's gone. These boys say, Peter, we'll go with you. I don't know if there was an argument at that moment. I don't know if Peter huffed and puffed. I don't know if he just had his head and resign for them to come with him? I really don't know. What I do know is that the other disciples saw that Peter was struggling and that he was in a tough spot, and they did the right thing as a friend should do. We'll go with you. It's not good for you to be alone right now. You are not in a good spot. You are not thinking clearly. This is not a good choice. We'll go with you. I want us to note that this was an unplanned fishing expedition, because the text goes on to say they fished all night and caught nothing. It was unplanned, and the length of time was indeterminate. The sun had set. Peter's going out. They're tired. I am sure that these other young men, that wasn't on their agenda. They didn't have it in their Franklin planner, if anybody still uses those things. They didn't have it in their Google Calendar. It was an unplanned, unorganized event. Peter's going fishing, and they're like, we're going to go with him, and we'll stay with you. We'll stay with you all night if it takes. We'll stay with you all through the next day. It really doesn't matter whether we catch fish or not, because the whole point is we're going to be with you. We're in this together. Peter, we are your friends. You know, years ago, I was in a house church with two young men named Jason and Rennie. Jason was a disciple. Rennie was studying the Bible to become a disciple. And one thing that we always loved to do was go mountain biking. So one summer around 5 a.m., we did this entire summer long. Every Saturday we'd wake up and we would go mountain biking. Getting to the trail about 6 a.m., we'd hit it for about 2 or 3 hours, and we'd go grab coffee, do some Bible study, enjoy time together. It was just a lot of fun. I remember one particular Saturday, I think it was August, I don't remember exactly, but it must have been monsoon season because it rained like it was Noah and the flood. I expected to see a giraffe and an ark go sliding by as we were out there. And I was really tempted to cancel because I'm like, first of all, this is dangerous. And secondly, I'm like, I don't want to get all wet. That's just, that doesn't sound like fun. But I knew I needed to be with my friends for a couple reasons. One of my friends was struggling with his marriage. The other was struggling with his faith in God, and did he even want to become a disciple of Jesus? And I'm like, okay, these guys are down for going. I'm going to go be with them. So we get out to this trail, and it's worse than I thought it would be. The parking lot has 3 feet of water in it. Before we even get to the trail, we get to the trail, and it was a mix between swimming and riding. So it's muddy. Our pedals are churning in the water. At times we have to get off, and we're stomping and clomping mud and getting through. And at one point, we are a few miles back in the forest preserve. It continues to pour rain. I have no idea where we are. We had a phone in a Ziploc baggie. We get it out, and it's raining so bad we can't even get a GPS signal. So we are lost in the woods, don't know where we're at, but we're together. While we're out there biking, we see this hill, and we called it Monster Hill. We called it Monster Hill because it's a hill that nobody in their right mind should ever attempt to go up on a mountain bike. Really steep, muddy, and we turned to one another and we said, let's do it. Let's go up Monster Hill together. And so one by one we tried it. One by one we got about 3/4 of the way up, and our wheels are spinning, and we're going as fast as we can, and then we fall off and slide down the mountain. And so we each tried this 2 or 3 times. By the time that we got done, we are coated head to toe in mud. It's raining. We're on our back gasping for breath, and we are laughing and having the time of our lives. It's an experience I'll never forget. Later on in the day, the rain started to let up a little bit. We found our GPS signal. We, of course, made our way back, or I wouldn't be here this evening. But we went to a friend's house, hosed off our bikes, hosed off ourselves, changed our clothes, went and got some coffee, and we did some Bible study. We talked about friendship. We talked about our marriages and how we can encourage our spouses. We talked about faith in God. And I believe it's because of moments like that that my one friend, Rennie, went on to become a disciple of Jesus. My friend Jason went on to not only resolve things in his marriage, but have a great marriage, go on to lead a youth and family ministry, and his son is now in the full-time ministry serving overseas. I believe it's because we made a decision to be friends. Might sound silly climbing up a mountain, riding a bike and getting muddy and wet. Maybe I'd never do that, and maybe that's not your thing. But for us, it was the glue that bonded us together. Guys, we were such good friends, we had nicknames for each other. One time I was out riding and I got stung by a bee, and we hit a bee's nest and they were chasing me, so they called me Killer Bee from that day on. You know you're good friends when you have nicknames for each other.
Yeah.
What would happen if we all had this attitude? We'll stay with you. We'll go with you. In the good times and in the bad. Of course we want to laugh and have fun, but there's times where we just need to sit with each other in those dark moments and just be together. Maybe we don't have the right words to say. Maybe it's nothing more than having a cup of coffee and hugging and just hanging out together. But those are the moments that bond us together. Let me ask us this question. Would we say that the people in our house church are our friends, or are they just people that we go to church with? Love cannot happen in a weekly 1-hour meeting. It's a good start. It's not a bad thing. We do need to meet together, but deep relationships are not built on a weekly scheduled group activity. It's got to be a lot deeper than that. We have an incredible opportunity coming up in April in our house churches. And this opportunity is for us to really build deeper friendships. Some of us have friendships here and we've known each other a long time, but some of us, we don't really know each other that well. It's an opportunity for us to have a friend that in our greatest moments of needs is the one that's going to say, hey, I'll be with you and I'll stay with you. Don't we all want these kind of friends? Don't we all want somebody that we know that in the toughest moments of our life, they're going to be there? And let's do this together as a church. Let's build fantastic friendships in our house churches. And it doesn't matter if you have everything in common or not, because we all have Jesus in common. So that's point number 1. Friendships take time. Number 2, friendships risk the relationship. Let me turn the light off here for just a moment here. So depending on who you are, you're going to have a different reaction to this picture. If you're a young man, you might look at this picture and say, that looks kind of cool. I wonder where he's at. Man, I could do that. That sounds awesome. Now, if you're a parent who's had young children, you have a very different reaction to that photo. Your reaction is, stop for the love of God. If you take one step further, you're grounded for life, Buster. We have different responses based on who we are to that picture. I remember a couple of years ago, our family was on vacation in Sedona. Sedona is a beautiful, beautiful place to go visit. If you've never been there, north of the Grand Canyon, or somewhere near the Grand Canyon, beautiful red rocks, cliffs, big drop-offs. Zach and I are hiking around Sedona and near the Grand Canyon, and we're hiking out. And as we're going out, there's a 4-foot ledge, and if you look down, there's a 300-foot drop-off with no rail. And Zach and I are like, cool. So we're hiking along, and we want to go because we know that around the curve is going to be the most beautiful sight you've ever seen. We just know it. So Roanne is about 20 feet behind us, and Roanne's like, I'm with you guys. So she starts coming up. And then Jinky is about 10 feet behind her, and I hear, Roanne, stop! No! Because you have a concerned mother. And maybe it's not a good idea for Roanne at that time to handle what we were doing. And so Jinky and Roanne went back, but Zach and I continued on, and there was a risk. I mean, we're taking our time, we're being careful, we're wearing the right shoes. It's a little bit, slippery at places, so you have to be careful. But man, we get around the corner, and it's just stunning. If you've never been out to Arizona, if you've never been to that part of the world, I mean, the payoff for a little bit of hiking is unbelievable. Here's my point. Relationships take risks. If you want a real friendship, you're gonna have to take a risk. You're gonna have to do something that's uncomfortable, something that is way beyond what you like to do. But if you're willing to risk it, the payoff is incredible. Go to Matthew 26, verse 36.
All right.
Matthew 26, 36. We've since learned that if Zach and I are going to go on hikes, we've learned that Jinky is going to stay back and do something else. She does not want to come along. Better that she not know. Matthew 26, 36. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." So Jesus knows that the cross is near. He knows it's about to get ugly. It's going to get bad very soon. So he's with 11 of his disciples. To 8 of them, he's like, "You guys sit here, and I'm going to go over there and pray." But he takes Peter, James, and John along with him. He's like, "Come on, guys." So they walk over with him. And then Jesus takes a risk in the relationship. And he tells them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." Jesus is troubled. Jesus is overwhelmed. Jesus is experiencing emotions that Peter, James, and John have never seen before. They've seen Jesus cry before. They've seen Jesus be upset before. But they've never seen overwhelmment. And Jesus takes a risk. Instead of being guarded, instead of closing it up, instead of thinking maybe they won't understand what's going on, he risks it all and tells them exactly how he's feeling. Please stay with me and keep watch. Jinky and I, when we moved here in the middle of 2021, if I'm honest with you, when I moved here, I had previously experienced a very challenging relationship. And I don't want to go into the specifics, but let me just say this. I was very hurt by this individual. They wronged me. I felt betrayed. I felt shamed. I felt deeply hurt. And I don't know in a group this size if that's happened to you. Some of us may have had some challenging relationships. Maybe you haven't experienced that. But for me, it was a really tough spot to be in. And so coming here, I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I work this out with God and work this out with forgiveness, or I'm not going to do a very good job as a minister. How in the world can I help other people if I'm as broken as I am right now? And this is honestly where I was at around the middle of 2021. Willing to give my heart, but guarded. Feeling a little insecure. Like when you've been hurt before, it takes time to give your heart again. Because you feel like, can I trust again? Can I really let down my guard? A person that really changed my life was Aaron Bradford. I've known Aaron for about 20 years, but I didn't really know him. We were in a musical together. We talked on a few occasions, but he was more of an acquaintance. But when we were looking to move back to the Midwest, I remember talking to Aaron on the phone. And Aaron, he's bright and full of encouragement. You'll love it here. Oh man, the church is amazing. Come on out, And he believes that, and he's absolutely right. The church is awesome here. But I had to make a decision. I'm like, am I going to let down my guard? And am I going to share with Aaron some of the challenges I went through? So even in the process of moving here, I remember calling Aaron and just pouring out my guts, praying with him, letting him know just some of the things I'm experiencing. Then moving here. And then months before we even officially moved to Indiana, talking to Aaron, having meals with him. And since we've been here, continuing to go on, being gut level open. Like Aaron knows Braxton unfiltered. Y'all see Sunday morning Braxton. Braxton looks like he mostly has it together. Mostly. But Aaron has seen me unfiltered. He knows me when I'm in a place of hurt. He knows me when I'm wrestling with tough things. And we've had talks where we've bared each other's souls. We've shared about difficult things. We've confessed sin to each other. We've had to work through bitterness and anger. We've talked about disappointments and our hopes and our fears and our dreams. Aaron is one of the few people in this life that knows me almost as well as Jinky knows me. There's only a handful of people that really, really know me like that. Aaron taught me it's worth taking the risk. It's worth it getting open. It's normal to struggle. It's just not good to do it on your own. It's normal to be angry, but it's not good to do it by yourself. It's normal to struggle and have doubts and fears and lose your faith at times and wonder, is this what it means? Man, Christianity is a whole lot harder than I thought it would be. But when you find a friend like that because you were willing to risk it, let me tell you, it's worth it. It's worth it. And it's what Jesus is calling us to as a church. You're not going to be like this with every person in our fellowship. Jesus had 3 close friends, Peter, James, and John. If you can find 2 or 3 people that really, really know you, and not people from another church. Some of us have been around the different churches, and I have good friends that are in other states. I'm talking about right here in Northwest Indiana. We need 2 or 3 people right here in our fellowship that really know us, that'll listen, they won't judge, they'll walk with us, they'll encourage us, and we in turn will do the same for them. We need these kinds of relationships if we're going to make it together as a family. Friends are willing to risk the relationship. Last point, friends find the fun. I believe Jesus had more fun than any person who ever lived. And maybe that doesn't jump off to you when you read the Bible, but when I read the Bible, man, I see Jesus having fun all over the place. The parables that he told. I still love the story about prayer, where he's talking about the guy coming to him and knocking on the door at midnight, and there's chickens and cows mooing, and he's waking up the neighborhood, and the scene that must have been. If you look at the parables of Jesus, they're filled with humor. Here in John chapter 2, it says Jesus and his followers were also invited to a wedding. Weddings are a time of great celebration, aren't they? Yeah. They're a lot of fun. I enjoy going to weddings. Now, when you have a wedding, you typically invite family and close friends. Now, from reading the story of John 2, I don't get the impression that Jesus was blood related to this group. What I do see is that Jesus and the disciples were friends to the people hosting the banquet. So they invite them because they know not just Jesus, but the disciples with them are going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. Jesus, I bet, was the life of the party, telling stories. He might have been, dancing around. These are things you have to just kind of picture what may have happened in the Bible. But if you go to a wedding, you're not sitting off to the side with your arms crossed and saying, it looks like they're having fun, not me. No, that's not how it was in their culture. It was loud, it was dancing, it was singing, it was joyous. We've had some incredible fun times in just the year and a half that Jinky and I have been here. You guys remember Ziggy's Funland last summer? Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. Doing laser tag, miniature golf, and then my favorite thing, I gotta find this. I videotaped at the end of the night, there was a go-kart race, bar none. And I don't remember all who was in it. All I remember is Julie and Bill Savage, and I don't know, Scott, maybe you were in there too, and Dane, a few others. And Steve Lager. And man, there was serious intent. They're like, I'm gonna win. No, I'm gonna win. They're going for it. Poor Julie, she spins out, her car stalls, and they have to put out the checkered or the white flag so she can get off the course. But it was just a fun experience being together. We've done a lot of things like that. The annual County Line Orchard, being together and having a bonfire and a hayride. Christmas at Teeble's, dressing our best and just hanging out and having a feast together. We got to go to a really fun thing a few days ago. Chris and Julie Landers invited a few of us over to their house because Patrick had just turned 5 years old. Now, if you want to learn to have fun, go hang out with a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old knows to have fun. Jeff and I were together. He's opening up a card, and inside is some money. He sees the money. His eyes light up, and he holds it up, and he goes, "Now I can go to Wendy's." I love the mindset of a 5-year-old boy. And so, man, and I love what Julie and Chris did. Julie put up balloons together in the house, homemade cupcakes. Julie's a good baker, man. If you haven't tried her cupcakes, oh my goodness. And that's a great example of having people in your home, having fun, building relationships. We need to have fun together. If we're not having fun in the fellowship, if we're not having fun in a relationship in our house churches and just people we're around, there's something that's got to change. Because Jesus was all about fun. Yes, it's hard being a Christian. Yes, there's sacrifice and self-denial and challenge. There's all those things. But I also see a lot of laughter. I see a lot of late nights and early mornings. I see meals together. I see people that are polar opposite when it comes to what do we have in common, and yet they figured it out and they built deep friendships. This is such a big part of being a follower of Jesus. I'd say if your best friends are not in the kingdom of God, I don't know how you can be a follower of Jesus. I don't know how it's possible. We have to have deep friends in the fellowship of God's kingdom. So here's a take home, and I want us to talk about this in our house churches. Here's the takeaway. I want us in the next week or two to plan a fun and interactive activity. Why do I say interactive? Don't go see a movie, don't watch a TV show. That's not the kind of fun I'm talking about. That's for something where you have established a fantastic friendship and you just need some downtime. Do something interactive. Board games are interactive. Singing karaoke, though that's not for everybody, that's interactive. Having a bonfire, barbecuing together, whatever it is, whatever your group wants to do, you can go to the mall together. It doesn't matter. You can go bowling. There's so many activities we can do. You know, there's even this thing called axe throwing, where you go to a place where you can throw an axe at a target if that's your thing. Sign the waiver. Plan something fun with your house church. And I would recommend you meet together on either a Friday night, a Saturday, or a Sunday afternoon. And the reason why I say that is relationships take time. We don't want this to be an hour hangout and a little hors d'oeuvre and then go home and have a good night. Spend extended time together. Plan 3 or 4 or more hours together. Be together. Learn each other's characteristics and hobbies and talk more about what you have in common. There's so many different ways we can build relationships. So guys, this is really where we're going as we're building house churches, is we want to be connected. We want to have deep relationships. Amen? Amen. All right, so with that, find your house church. and get together and start planning some things up. Pick out a day and figure out something y'all want to do. Let's have a lot of fun doing it. Amen?
Right.